You are listening to the Life in Attleboro podcast, where we interview the city's most interesting people who are making a positive difference in our community. Hey everyone, I'm the host of the Life in Attleboro podcast, Mike Sullivan. I recently had a very sweet conversation with Joanne Listro. She's the owner of Drop Cookies, based right out of her own kitchen, right here in Attleboro. I met Joanne at the farmer's market a few weeks ago. Turns out she's quite the baker. She's also a hardworking mother who simply wants to make people find a little bit of joy with her delicious desserts. And the story behind why she started her business is as warm and wholesome as those chocolate chips and those freshly baked cookies. Enjoy episode 9 of the Life in Attleboro podcast. Joining me now is Joanne Listro. She is the owner of Drop Cookies, which is based right out of her own kitchen right here in Attleboro. I actually met Joanne at the farmer's market, and she told me she had already sold out of all of her cookies. So I had to grab a scone, and my wife actually took it to work before I could get my hands on it. And she told me the next morning that it was absolutely delicious. We're going to have to go back and grab another scone and make sure we get there in time to get some of your really good cookies. But Joanne, thank you so much for being with me today. I'd really like you to share the story behind Drop Cookies. First of all, when did you get the idea?
Like many people, I started reassessing my career path during COVID. My educational background is actually in the arts. I have a bachelor's fine arts and photography from Rhode Island School of Design.
RISD.
And then I did not go down that road. So as life goes, I ended up following a completely different path, and I worked as a legal assistant in civil litigation for 10 years. And then I was at home with my kids while they were young, and during that time I worked as a volunteer fundraiser. And then later I fell into healthcare compliance in a weird roundabout way. And I was there for 7 years. And so then when COVID rolled around and I had recently turned 50, which is also a bit life altering, I began to think more earnestly about trying to come up with something where I could use my photography and my creativity, make my own hours, and do something that truly brought me joy. And I'd always regretted not doing more with my photography. I love to bake and share my sweets with friends. As keeping those two things in mind, I talked with friends and decided to go into the baking business. It felt like a great marriage of my two interests. So I get to use my creative side with recipe development, food styling, photography, and then I get to bring joy to others with my sweets. So it's pretty nice.
I love that. And a hardworking mother. I just learned that as well. So
yeah, they're getting older now though, so that makes things easier.
Sure. When did this idea actually become a real business?
So it was the very tail end of 2021. I gave notice to my employer and I launched my business in time for Valentine's Day of February 2022. And thus the 22 in my web address because dropcookies.com was being parked by somebody. So I added my year of incorporation into my web
And I was
address.
actually going to ask you about where'd the 22 come from? So thank you for getting ahead of that. It piqued some curiosity for me. Why did you start the business in the first place? What's the motivation behind it?
Touching on what I had said earlier, I always enjoyed my previous jobs. I worked for great organizations. I developed a lot of new skills. I met some amazing people along the way. I'm genuinely grateful for those opportunities, and I have no regrets other than that I wished I had worked more diligently when I was younger at finding employment where I could make better use of my creativity. And so, like I said, with COVID and everything, and I'm turning 50, I started thinking about, not to sound gruesome, but mortality. And I wanted to do something while I had time and energy to do something that I really enjoyed for a change.
Yeah, that kind of hits home. I just turned the big 40 a few months back and got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and spending time with them is number one on the list and making memories. So I really can relate to you on all of that there. I was looking at your website when I was doing research for our interview, and I saw your mother mentioned. Possible inspiration. Yes, she was a huge inspiration. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was a great home baker, and that's where I learned to bake. And that's what piqued my interest in it when I was very young. She would show me how to fold things together and, what everything meant with baking, what creaming was and all of that. And what I loved about my mom, and I watched it her whole life, literally right up until she passed 5 years ago, she would bake
for others. Just if someone was sick, she would make them grape nut pudding, which I always thought was so gross. But she loved it, and she said she felt it was very nutritious because it was loaded with eggs, and it is a comfort food. It's like a custard. She would make apple pies for people. If it was someone's birthday and their favorite thing was apple pie, she would deliver an apple pie that day. And then if someone suffered a loss, she would bring something sweet for them to eat. So I'm sorry, I'm
It's
getting choked up.
heart of gold. It
It's
certainly sounds like a heart of gold that
yeah,
she
she
passed down
really
to you.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you, Joanne. And thank you for continuing that legacy. That's really special. There's something to be said about all the stresses in the world that a lot of people go through and how just a little sweet treat can change somebody's day. So kudos.
Yeah, it's true. Just a little
That's
lift.
it. That's it. And you're doing a tremendous job with that. So
Thank you.
I tried to taste the scone. My wife beat me to it, but scones, cookies, what do you bake? I know those two. Anything else that you specialize in?
For my business, I currently only do cookies
Okay.
and scones. And really, I just do the scones for the farmers markets. I think it's a nice morning treat, although they're good anytime. And it's funny, I wasn't going to sell the scones, but my dad, he loves my lemon blueberry
Nice.
scones.
Nice.
So he said, you should really sell these. These are different and unusual, and you can get cookies anywhere. That's why I sell those at the farmers markets, on the morning markets, and then cookies.
And what flavors do you offer?
So it's funny, I had to go back and look. I guess I offer nearly 20
Oh, wow.
flavors. I can't believe I offer that many. Yeah, and actually, I am going to scale back on that because there are certain ones that are top sellers, and then there are ones that don't get as much traction. So I'm planning on taking those off of the roster, so to speak, and make room for new recipes because I'm itching to do some recipe development. But for what I do offer, all my flavors are on my website, but some of the classics that I offer are sugar, salted chocolate chip, which those are huge
Yes.
sellers, oatmeal raisin, snickerdoodle, peanut butter chocolate chunk, molasses. There's a
Wow.
bunch. And then I offer 3 gluten-free
Okay.
flavors. One is, I love this one, the apple cinnamon. It's made from certified gluten-free oat flour, and it contains homemade cinnamon chips, and it's more of a cakey cookie. Those are
Wow.
so
That
delicious,
sounds
I have to
amazing.
say, if I do say so myself. There's a gluten-free coconut almond chocolate chip, which has an almond flour and shredded coconut base, and that's on the idea of a
Okay.
macaroon. And then a gluten-free chocolate chip, which is also made with certified gluten-free oat
Wow.
flour. And then I have one vegan flavor. It's a vegan chocolate chip, and that's made with unrefined coconut oil, which gives it a subtle coconutty flavor. Those are really nice. And then my newest flavor, which I'll be debuting at the I believe it's August 17th, Attleboro Farmers Market, is a dark chocolate salted
Oh,
caramel.
wow. That sounds amazing. All
Yeah.
right. We'll see you on the
Yeah,
17th
I tested
then.
it out with some yeah, I tested it out with some clients and they thought it was a
That's
winner.
amazing. So speaking of the farmer's market, again, that's where I met you. But if I wanted some of those delicious flavors right now that you just mentioned, what's the best, easiest, fastest way to get an order in?
So on my website, there's a contact link at the bottom, and you can fill out a quick little form indicating the flavors that you're interested in and the certain products, whether it's a bag or a box or a favor or whatnot, the date you need it by. And then, but also anyone could just email me at dropcookies22@gmail.com.
Perfect. So you just mentioned this, and I was going to ask you about it. Your website mentions bags, boxes, and favors. What do you mean by that?
I sell my cookies in half dozen bags. It's like a clear, food safe, upright bag it stands up, and so they're in a stack of 6. And then I finish it off with a ribbon tie and a label tag. Those are priced at $12 for 6 cookies or $13.50 for the gluten-free or
Wow.
vegan. And then I also sell cookies in brown craft bakery boxes. If you went to a bakery and you bought a box of sweets, and those hold up to 2 dozen cookies. And the boxes can hold a mix of up to 4 flavors. So I do 6 of each flavor, whatever you're purchasing in the box. So those make nice gifts too. So the boxes are priced depending on how many cookies you're ordering. The cookies are $2 each, or $2.25 for the gluten-free and vegans. And that also makes a really nice gift, especially if you're going to a party. They're festive. Either the bags, because I can customize the ribbon tag on the bags to whatever color you would like. I also often customize the label on the bag. So like I just did baby shower gifts, and I did a little baby carriage on the
Oh.
tag. Or if it's a graduation gift, I have a grad cap, things like that. Or a birthday, I have a birthday cake.
Wow.
So they're
Those are
cute.
first of all, priced really well. The cookies. That sounds amazing. I'm going to go to your website right after we hop off and get me some. But so what, I'm curious. So you mentioned grad parties and everything like that. What's the biggest order that you think you can remember doing? Like how many cookies at once were you like, oh my God, I've got to make X amount of cookies? Or do you try and keep it smaller on
Oh,
purpose?
it always varies. So to the farmers markets, it's usually between 200 and 260 cookies that I'll bring. It depends. Like it's really a challenge. I have to look at the weather and I have to look at the other vendors that are going to be there because there are plenty of sweets vendors at the market as well. But I think my biggest bake might have been for the Bishop Fian High School homecoming a couple of years ago. They were estimating over 1,000 attendees or
Wow.
something, and I think I made 450
Holy
cookies for
cow.
that event.
How long does something like that take?
Yeah.
How many days?
It's several
Yeah.
days. So I would have done the doughs over the course of 2 or 3 days, just so that I'm not in the kitchen for 10 hours making dough. And then I portion it out and freeze
Okay.
it. And then the baking would all take place the day before because I'm a stickler for freshness. So I really try to bake everything the day before. Like I have a wedding coming up this September and they want 350 cookies, and my cookies will actually be the only
Oh,
dessert
wow.
at the wedding. But that's 350. So I'll do the doughs over the course of a couple of days, but I will bake everything fresh the day before. I'm just realizing I forgot to
Sure.
mention what the favors. Just to
Yeah.
backpedal a little bit. You asked about what the favors were, and I didn't answer that question. Those are larger than my regular cookies. My regular cookies are portioned out in a 2.5 tablespoon scoop, and the favors are a 3.5 tablespoon scoop. They are individually packaged in clear flap seal bags that lay flat, and they're finished with a ribbon and a sticker, which is all customized according to the event. So, like for instance, I did some, or I'm doing some for a wedding this coming weekend, and they wanted a black satin ribbon, and they did a beautiful crest
Mhm.
logo with their
Yeah.
initials, the
Yep.
first and yeah, so really pretty black and white logo. And so I've done favors for showers, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, and I can also do these for corporate events. I can include a photo on the sticker. I recently did one for a graduation party, and they did the really beautiful photo of their son in his cap and
Wow.
gown. So the favors are priced at $5 each, just because they're bigger and it's much more time consuming with the care and the packaging and
We're
everything.
still beautifully priced there, though. So it just sounds like complete customization. Like as customized as you want it, you can pretty much get there, right?
Yeah, that's what I love
Yeah.
about it. I love making people happy, getting what they want with their
That's
details.
awesome. So when I put my order in after we hop off here, how long do you think if I order a dozen cookies, how long do you think I have to wait before they're in my mouth?
Yeah, so it depends. So I do ask for, with special orders, order minimum of 1.5 dozen cookies or 2 dozen favors. Just because if someone says, "Hey, can I get 6 cookies?" I've got to turn the oven
Yeah,
on and I've got to probably make a whole batch of dough just to get someone 6 cookies for
of course.
$12.
Yeah.
So it's a little silly, but I try to keep certain doughs and the most popular doughs in the freezer so that a lot of times someone will say, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to this party and I need a box of cookies. Could you give me an assortment of 2 dozen?" So that way I can just go in there and grab what I need and fulfill that order in a short span of time. So it really depends on what you're looking for and how soon you need it. That's really what that's really the answer to
All
that, I
right,
guess.
perfect. Is there anything else that you'd like the people of Attleboro to know about drop cookies? Anything you haven't mentioned yet?
Yes. So, an important thing to mention is that I operate a residential kitchen bakery that's permitted through the city of Attleboro. And while I can bake flavors that do not contain nuts or some other allergen, none of my equipment is dedicated nut free or allergen free. So, all of my packaging states that my products could contain trace amounts of any of the 9 major allergens. So, that's something really important to know. That's not to say that I cannot bake for someone with allergies. It's just that they have to understand that there are some people with such severe allergies that they have to buy from a bakery that's dedicated nut free, say. And I would absolutely say to them all day long, go to some other bakery because I cannot guarantee that. That being said, my best friend's daughter has a severe nut allergy and I bake for her regularly.
Okay.
So I'm very safe, but it's important to note that's a big
Yeah.
distinction. And then also I accept cash, Venmo, and credit. So people often ask what payment forms of payment I take. And I deliver within 10 miles of Attleboro High for orders over $100, or otherwise customers can pick up from me at my house or at a mutually convenient place.
Perfect.
And I think the last thing I would say is I love to help people celebrate their special life events.
Yeah.
That's why I do it.
I have sensed that through our interview here. Just a little sweet treat goes a very long way. Joanne Listro, owner and expert baker of Drop Cookies right here in Attleboro from her kitchen. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your story with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I really hope you enjoyed our conversation with Joanne Listro, owner of Drop Cookies right here in Attleboro. After our interview, I hopped on our website, dropcookies22.com, and purchased a dozen of the salted chocolate chip cookies, and I can confirm they were amazing. So if you'd like to support a hardworking mother who simply wants to put a smile on your face with her sweet treats, I'll put the link to Joanne's website in the show notes for you. We really hope you're enjoying the Life in Attleboro podcast. It would mean so much if you hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Also, make sure you're signed up for our email list. That's where you're going to find exclusive benefits, including early access to every new podcast episode, special savings at Attleboro restaurants and businesses, and you'll stay in the know about cool events happening in our great city. And if you know someone who would make a great guest on our podcast, please shoot us an email at lifeinattleboro@gmail.com. That's it for today. Life in Attleboro is a great thing. Support our community, promote positivity, and make a stranger smile. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Life in Attleboro podcast.